Okay, you beautiful New Zealanders. Well, we've made it to Article 2 after 7 videos on Article 1, which was a mammoth marathon. But anyway, here we are. We're in the Treaty for Newbies, and we're going to be doing the first one on Article 2. So I hope you enjoy this. Pretty simple, but really, really the most crucial of the 3 articles, I think, as we unpack this. So let's do that together. I think this article is the most interesting of all the 3, and I'll explain why. For starters, let's go back to basics. The treaty in Maori was constructed from the final English draft, which has come to be known as the Littlewood Draft. You can download a copy of this draft and how it came to be called the Littlewood Draft in the description of this video. Now, there are only 2 differences between the Littlewood final English draft and the treaty in Maori. Remember, the Maori treaty was the one that most of the chiefs signed, so that is the treaty. So the first difference is the date. The date on the draft is the 4th of February 1840, which is the day it was finalised and handed to missionary Henry Williams to be translated into Maori. You remember that. The date on the treaty in Maori is the 6th of February. This too is to be expected, since that was the day it was signed at Waitangi. Well, what's the second difference? The word Maori was inserted last minute, meaning just before it was read to the chiefs for the first time, in the tent at Waitangi on the 5th of February into Article 3. It was inserted on the 5th of February. Remember when they had the afternoon and they were all making speeches about the treaty, the chiefs were? So Article 3 read, in return for the cession of their sovereignty to the Queen, the Maori people of New Zealand shall be protected by the Queen of England, and the rights and privileges of British subjects will be granted to them, unquote. Now see the way where the word Maori was inserted? That's what I mean by the only difference between the final English draft, or the second difference between the final English draft and the treaty in Maori. So if you want to know what the treaty in Maori really says, just read the Littlewood Draft. So here is Article 2 of the treaty of Waitangi. Notice it only has 2 sentences. The Queen of England confirms and guarantees to the chiefs and the tribes and to all the people of New Zealand the possession of their lands, dwellings and all their property, but the chiefs of the Confederation of United Tribes and the other chiefs grant to the Queen the exclusive rights of purchasing such lands as the proprietors thereof may be disposed to sell, at such prices as may be agreed between them and the person appointed by the Queen to purchase from them, unquote. In the first few videos on Article 2, we're just going to analyse the first sentence, not the second one. We'll go on to the second one, but at the moment we're just dealing with the first sentence. We can take it that Governor Hobson is acting on the full authority of the Queen of England. He is speaking for her, the most powerful ruler in the world at the time. Confirms, quote, and guarantees, quote, relates to British assuring the chiefs that 1. The British considered that the chiefs owned all the land of New Zealand in 1840, except the land which they had already sold to settlers or property developers before the treaty was signed. The British are confirming to the chiefs that it's clear to them, i.e. the British, that they, i.e. the chiefs, own the land of New Zealand. No problem. Number 2, guarantees is just that. The British guarantees, or gave the chiefs a guarantee that they, i.e. the British, would protect, via the law, the army, the police or whatever, the Maori ownership or possession of not just their land but also their dwellings and their property. In other words, anything on their land. Once again though, there was an implicit proviso. If the chiefs sold their land, dwellings and property, the guarantee of protection would be transferred to the new owner. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Let's say 540 chiefs signed the treaty. The actual number who signed varies a little depending on who you read. But let's say it was 540. How would the British protect the Maori possession of each chief's land unless that land was surveyed, boundaries established and titles issued? The answer is simply that they couldn't do it. So the issue of surveying the land owned by the chiefs was one of the highest priorities of the British when they got here. The practice of surveying land and issuing title was described by Lord Normanby, that's Hobson's superior in London, as, quote, that system of sale in the anticipation of buying land from Maori, which experience has proved the wisdom and the disregard of which has been so fatal to the prosperity of other British settlements, unquote. So important was the issue of surveying the land and the issue of titles that Lindsay T. Buick reports that Hobson took Surveyor General, i.e. the head of a small army of surveyors who came to New Zealand after 1840, to set up the new colony. Quote, Mr. Matthew Felton came with Hobson as the Surveyor General to the new colony. That was when Hobson came here in 1840 to set up New Zealand. He also brought Felton Matthew with him. In New Zealand today, 2024, the British system of surveying the land and issuing titles has been preserved. Every property in New Zealand has to be surveyed, boundaries established, and title issued. Okay, that's enough for today. Tomorrow I'll go more into the surveying of the land and how it has a bearing on the treaty today. It's really interesting. I'll see you tomorrow.